Today, we are going to tell you our early impressions for Final Fantasy 16, which is actually out the day this podcast comes out. So hopefully you guys are all playing, but we're going to tell you how we think about the game so far.
That's right. It's out. We have been playing it. There's some things that surprised us based on our initial expectations and thoughts. So yeah, we're going to dig deep into this big new game.
Yeah. You are in a different place, and we're going to tell you all about where you are at. But that means this podcast, as it's still going, will be a little bit different as well. So hopefully you guys are still hanging with us while we navigate Kit being in a different country.
How dare I go on vacation? Not allowed.
Well, it's very much allowed, which is why you're there. So, as always, everything on this channel is made possible by our wonderful Patreon family. Thank you so much for supporting us and everything that we do. Please subscribe on patreon.com/Kit and Krysta.
People in our Discord have been having a good time with the will they or won't they with this Nintendo Direct. There is a number of people who have profile picture bets who are about to switch their profile picture to Mariah Carey. Why is it Mariah Carey? I haven't got a clue. It's impossible to find out. So all this to say, our Discord is a great place to hang out. People tell us this is their favorite place on the internet all the time. And that is just a taste of the great stuff and exclusive content you can get on our Patreon.
Exactly. There's also a free trial, and you can join at no cost, and you can participate in things like our polls, or when we do cool Vista contests and other stuff. You can check it out there. And we also have a free tier. So lots of different ways to get in on this. My dog is happening? Hold on. Shelly, come here. Yes, everything's fine. Keep going.
The third podcast member. Keep going. So where am I? Yes, let's cut to the chase with this. I will give the good listeners and viewers 3 hints and see if they can find it out. Hint 1, I am somewhere in Asia.
Yes.
Hint 2, I am on an island. Hint 3 is
it's not Japan.
You just spoiled this. You just spoiled my great reveal. Hint 3.
There's so many places.
Hint 3 was that one of the trademark foods here is a noodle soup. Now, I think a lot of people would have said, "Oh, you're in Japan. The food is ramen." I'm not in Japan. I am in Taiwan. I believe it or not, I actually have family out here, and I know so many people who had the same story of like, "Oh, I was about to go on a trip. I had this trip scheduled for July 2020." And guess what? Travel wasn't happening in July 2020. So it's finally been pushed out, but I'm finally here. It's so great. I've been here a number of times before, but it's a really fun place to be. The pastime here seems to be nonstop eating. Like the times that I have been here, like I have eaten like I've never eaten before. So I'm looking forward to coming back about 50 pounds heavier than I was. But yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, lots of delicious food to eat. It's also very hot there right now. It's like the middle of summertime in Asia, which could be a little rough with the humidity and the heat, which is quite different from California. But yes, you are on vacation. We are still doing a podcast somehow. I don't know how.
It's great. It's happening. Look, no, this is great. I have some plans. We're going to do a video later on where I'm going to try and go check out the gaming scene out here. I'm going to do some research and find out like kind of where that's all concentrated and do a little vlog for all of you with that. I did see as I was going about town yesterday, I'm in Taipei, by the way, a huge billboard on the side of a building for Tears of the Kingdom. Nintendo did have, I don't know if they still do have, but this was kind of the headquarters of Nintendo Asia, which is sort of like all of the non-Japan parts of Asia.
Yes.
So there's definitely a huge gaming presence and community here that I'm going to be digging into.
Yeah, I always love to go to a different country and see what the gaming scene is like.
Right.
So it's always fun to see like what other people are into. I do feel like Nintendo and a lot of the very popular games that are out there are quite global nowadays. So it'd be interesting to see what other games people are into in Taiwan and what they do in terms of, finding their communities while they're playing video games. So yeah, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
All right. Other things happening. We have many Zelda videos on the channel. Already live is a video that we did about 5 small improvements that would make Tears of the Kingdom, which is a near perfect game, just a teensy bit better. So check that out if you haven't yet. But yeah, these are like easy things that I think the dev team could do in like DLC or some kind of update or patch. But there's just some little nits that we were like, oh, if only this game had this quality of life thing, it would make it, exponentially better and more enjoyable to play.
Yeah, we were talking about this recently where, this game took years and years and years to make. They were talking about how they basically spent the last year just doing polish, but it's like, some of these little quality of life things sort of snuck through where it could be a little bit better, or it could be a little bit easier to figure out or do certain things. So we got 5 of those picked out. Maybe you agree. Maybe you got another one that you want to add to the list, but I like that video a lot.
Yeah, I read some of the comments in there, and a lot of people agreed with what we said are ones that we would love to see fixed in a future update. And some of them had a couple of other ones that I was like, oh, that's a good call as well. Like people had some like add-ons to some of ours, which I definitely agreed with. So let us know if you have small improvements as you spend hours and hours in Tears of the Kingdom like we have. Another Tears of the Kingdom video that would be out at the time of this podcast being out is something that we were really excited about to redo in Tears of the Kingdom. We did this video in Breath of the Wild when we were at Nintendo for a Nintendo Minute, which is ride versus run. And in Breath of the Wild, we did it with horses and Link just hoofing it, like running, and seeing which one is faster, if you can get from point A to point B faster on a horse or just running. This time, it was a little different. We did it with vehicles, like building some sort of vehicle and running, which turned out to be a lot more mind-boggling than it should have been, especially for me. So you guys can watch my epic fail. That was this video.
You might assume, like, in the original video, the horse is obviously faster or the vehicle's obviously faster, but Link has the element of mobility when he is on foot, climbing, gliding, all that stuff. So it's actually a much closer matchup than you might think.
Exactly. It's always like, you can't underestimate how easy it is for Link to get around on foot because of all of the mobility options. And this time there's other things like getting into a tower and shooting up the tower and seeing if you can use that to your advantage. Although the Zonite vehicles, you can build some really cool ones, but the thing is you have to build them fast and be able to, pilot it well, which turned out to be quite the challenge for me. So there was that.
Oh no!
There was a pretty much like a breakdown moment that I had in this video that was quite unexpected.
Right.
So anyways.
Finally, you might be wondering where's all the Nintendo Direct content of this video? So we are recording this before the start of the week. We don't know if this Nintendo Direct is happening. Mm-hmm. If it is, we'll have some other stuff up on our channel that you can check out where all the stuff is there. If it didn't, let's never speak of it again.
I'm getting pretty tired of all the crazy rumors. I can see how it definitely is a different feeling being on the outside for these rumors than being on the inside. When we were at Nintendo, the rumors, Nintendo Direct rumors that would pop up very often would be something that we also had to deal with, but in quite a different way. And now it's like the opposite, where somehow we are still dealing with Nintendo Direct rumors, but in a quite different way. And it makes it a little bit stressful because you are on vacation and the time zones are really different for both of us this time around. So not to like take the air out of people's hope and prayers for a Nintendo Direct, but I really hope one does not happen because I don't want to deal with it, honestly. So
is that what you think or what you want to happen?
I don't know even what to think. I think one is actually happening. I'm just praying to every god that I know to not have one this next week. I can't deal with it alone. Like, I just don't want to. Like, you sent me this email right before this on a Sunday night that was like, this is what we should do. If there is a Direct, and I've already I deleted it because I was like, I can't deal with this. I literally cannot deal with this. It's like so many weird options of what to do. Like, do it with a guest. Do it with, I'm going to send you my predictions so you can just read them out loud like a newscaster. I'm like, I don't want to do any of this. This is terrible.
All right, this conversation's gone to a stressful place. Let's move on.
I hope it doesn't happen. If you love me, people out there on the internet, please pray that there is not a Nintendo Direct until Kit comes back from vacation in July.
But the Mariah Carey bets.
Let's put those thoughts out there into the ether. I'm going to manifest to my best abilities.
All I want for Christmas is a Nintendo Direct.
Oh my God, no, I don't.
Let's take a moment to thank our first sponsor, which is Factor. Now that it's summer, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for sunny, active days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with flavorful and nutritious ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track reaching your goals. Guess what? I have a big Factor order waiting for me when I get back home because I am not going to the grocery store. I'm not dealing with any of that. I'm just going to have the food ready for me.
Exactly. That is the opposite of being stressed out by a potential Nintendo Direct.
That's right.
Not being stressed out by your meal options, being able to stay on track with your fitness goals and eating well and having an easy solution. That is Factor, and we love it. Very easy. You get the meals. You just pop it into the microwave. 2 minutes, ready to go. And they have delicious smoothies, which I love as a healthy snack. So, wonderful.
There are 34 weekly options, so there is so much to choose from, and they have recently added surf and turf, and I like this, surf and surf options.
Oh, just the pescatarians for me.
All the different types of fish that you want. But yeah, that's one of the great things about it is every time that you go in, there's something new to check out and try out, and it's so fast to get ready. Again, it's a ready-to-eat meal that you just throw in the microwave, and you're good to go. And this stuff is delicious. Yeah. We've been eating it all the time.
So good.
Yeah. So head to factormeals.com/KittenKrysta50 and use code KittenKrysta50to get 50% off your first box. That's code KittenKrysta50at factormeals.com/KittenKrysta to get 50% off your first box.
Yum! I'll put the link right over here and also in the description below.
All right, why don't we get straight into the games we are playing? We will get into our big Final Fantasy 16 topic here, but first, I feel like we're almost at the end of our Tears of the Kingdom updates, so let's do that first.
Yes, you have since beaten the main story of the game. You've defeated Ganon.
Right. You
have done all of that stuff. So yeah, what are your, without spoiling for everybody, obviously, me included, because I have not done it yet, like what were your final thoughts, feelings, reactions after like rolling the credits, basically?
Yeah, so I, in our last episode, had just triggered the final quest, and I didn't know, like, gosh, how long is this going to be? Is this going to lead to even more little quests along the way? Because I really wanted to wrap that up before I went on this trip. Like, I did not want to finish the game on an airplane or any, like, I wanted to experience that on a TV in all its glory. I did that basically in its entirety the following day. So it was a good, couple hours quest to finish the game and wrap up. I really liked the final portions of this game. I think in comparison to Breath of the Wild, I think I liked this a little bit better. I think the boss encounter was really well done. Didn't rely on any sort of gimmicky stuff. I never like it when like they introduce some new thing in the final battle. It's like, oh, yeah. This is the whole hook of the final battle. I won't spoil it, but it felt very
true to what it was.
Use the things that you have learned so far. And then there was sort of a final sequence that was really breathtaking, and it's hard to talk about without going into a lot of specificity, but the way that I've been describing it to people is like, I have never been pushing the screenshot button more when I was doing like a sequence in a game, because just like every time it's like, oh, that looks cool. Wow, that looks cool. There's something amazing happening. So it's just like the whole time. So now I have been turned loose in Hyrule without any of that hanging over my head anymore. I played this game basically nonstop on the very long flight over here, and it's just wonderful to be able to explore freely and know that I've done all of the story stuff in the game. So I know we've been playing it pretty differently, where you've been doing a lot of the other stuff before you finalize the story. I kind of wanted to do it the other way.
Yeah, we're really different in the way that we approach this game. Like, I only am interested in the exploration part of it if I have the reward of finishing the game and learning the conclusion to the story, because I know if I beat the game now without doing the exploration part of it, I'll just never go back, and I won't be able to, like, I want to move on to a different game, like Final Fantasy being that game. And I feel like if I beat the game, then it's going to kill my motivation to finalize all that exploration. And for some reason, and I actually didn't, 100% complete Breath of the Wild, and I wasn't interested in doing that at all. I think I wrapped up Breath of the Wild at about 90 shrines. I certainly left lots of areas unexplored in that game. So it's weird to me in a good way that I've really become quite the little completionist with Tears of the Kingdom, which is not like me at all. Usually I'm not like a completionist kind of person. I think the main motivation is that I do like to have the map filled out. Like I have this weird need to just not have any unfinished map areas. And so the fact that there is the depth map and the Hyrule map both need to be filled out in these different ways has really motivated me to continue the exploration. So I just completed my entire depth map. I got all the light routes. So that was quite the accomplishment. You get a little dinky medal when you finish that. So it's nothing to write home about, but
that's it.
That's it.
Oh.
You get a little message that's like, good job. You completed you have dispelled the darkness.
Okay.
And then you get this a little acorn medal. It's literally nothing. It's nothing at all.
Korok poop?
Do it. No.
Oh.
Don't do it if you think that the reward at the end is
Yeah.
going to be fantastic. Do it because you want to do it.
Yeah.
I found that whole gameplay loop of completing the map down in the depths and relating it back to the map of Hyrule was very interesting. There was so many similarities between the two worlds, and you're just all the light routes are connected to the shrines, obviously. So I was using it as a way to even get more shrines in Hyrule if I got a light route that was a shrine that I haven't gotten yet. So there was a lot of this weird relativity between the two areas that I found to be fascinating. And yeah, it was really interesting to do it. The light routes are a bit of a puzzle. Some of them are very, very difficult to get to, and you have to really figure out how to do it. So I was enjoying that quite a bit. I've completed that. I am 19 shrines away from getting all the shrines, so I'm going to get the shrines. And yeah, I think at that point I'm going to beat the game. So yeah, I'm pretty much I'm almost there.
So the thing was that the light route location correlates to a shrine.
Yeah.
But there are more shrines than light routes.
Correct.
So you might still have some shrines, maybe the ones that are in the sky.
The one in the sky. Yeah, the sky shrines are the ones
that don't match up with that. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
For all these shrines that you're doing, I take it you're not using anything to help you, any really hard to find ones, help you find them? Are you just using the little locator thing?
Yep.
Wow.
It's so hard.
That's a lot.
Some of them are so so unintuitive, I would say.
Right.
A lot of the shrines, I will say, that's towards the end game, the ones that you don't see obviously are in caves.
Yeah.
So you really have to navigate your way through them, and it's really hard because the cave system is really, really dense in this game. Obviously, it's something that I think the dev team intentionally did so that you would be exploring these caves to find these shrines. And yeah, some of them are there's no way you could know unless you just wandered around for hours that this cave was connected to the shrine, because they are so far apart from each other. You're there's no way that's the entrance to that shrine, but it totally is. So yeah, it is really, some of them are really, really hard to get to. There is a couple that I was just I don't understand where this is. It beeping at me. It's telling me that it's nearby down below. I cannot find this entrance. Where could it be? And then hours later, I would be totally somewhere else in the map, and it'd be oh, that was the shrine. That was the entrance to it.
That's quite an accomplishment.
It's crazy
for you to basically 100%. Obviously there's still Korok stuff. I'm sure you're not going to be doing all of those. No. But that's a huge accomplishment. You should be proud of that.
Yeah, I do think you get something when you complete the shrines. That's quite cool.
Another medal?
No, something else. I won't spoil it for people that are wanting to do this on their own. So there is something that you get for the shrines, which I think is kind of nice. But yeah, it's a very anticlimactic what they do with the map, because even when you complete the Hyrule map, it's you completed the map.
Right.
moving on. Like it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, but I really like it. It's brilliant the way that they designed the game, that the depth map and the Hyrule map are interconnected in that way. It's absolutely incredible. Like that is some amazing world building level design, or whatever you want to call it, like incredibly done. So yeah, it's really kept my attention, which was not the case in in Breath of the Wild. So I'm just really surprised because, again, I'm not like a completionist at all. So
yeah, and I remember when the game came out, I think you felt a little down on the shrines being so ultra hand puzzle heavy. So something must have turned around for you to do.
Yeah, I think that the later shrines that you get are very different. Like getting to the shrine is a puzzle in itself. So then those shrines become like the Raru's Blessing shrines, where you just go immediately to. That there's no like other thing in the shrine. Finding the shrine is a thing.
There are quite a few of those.
There's more in the end because it takes so long to find.
Maybe more than I would have expected, but it's fine.
Yeah. The other ones that I really like is the Naked and Afraid shrines, where you're just like nude in a shrine.
I like those too.
Deal with it. There's one that I did where you're naked and it was dark.
Oh,
it was really good. I died twice, but it was really fun. There are also the ones where it's like the crystal shrine quest, where you have to like the shrine, the rock for the shrine and the shrine are two separate locations. You have to like reunite them. Those are really fun. You usually have to build some sort of like ridiculous vehicle to transport the crystal, which is always like a fun puzzle to solve. So yeah, I feel like it's gotten better. The beginning shrines were so ultra hand heavy, and I was like, I don't really like this. So I was bad at it. That's why. Now I'm not bad at it anymore. I'm like good at it now. So
the other thing I want to ask you about is, so you have now explored all of the depths. Obviously that seems to be the thing that was motivating you, was unlocking all of those routes.
Yeah.
I have not spent a ton of time in the depths. Yeah. I mean, I've done some exploring, there's a lot of stuff that the game sends you down there to do. I haven't found it as compelling and as much to do as the other two parts of the game. Mm-hmm. Like, what have you found there that might change my mind on that?
Yeah, I think that the depths is a pretty interesting place. Like, obviously, all the mines are down there. So when we were trying to like fill up those batteries, that was important. The light routes, completing that was important to me. But down there, I wouldn't say it's like beyond those things. It's not like a must do. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to do it. And there's really nothing down there that I would say is like, oh my gosh, if you miss this part of the game, then like that would really, really suck. There's very difficult enemies down there. So if you want like a kind of like a boss challenge, like there's something fun there. And of course there's those treasures that you can get from the maps, like of different like outfits and things like that, that you can get down there, which some of them, I got the Twilight tunic down there. I was really excited about that one because that's my favorite game. So I was like,
or you could scan Amiibo.
Cool. Or I don't do that. I don't do any of the Amiibo stuff. So yeah. You can do that too. The other thing I would say that's kind of interesting about the depths is like you do get like some of the bosses that you encounter in the temples, you do get like a different version of them down in the depths. So like if you wanted to fight one of those bosses again, but in a different way, that would be something to do down there, I suppose. Okay. Oh, and the Yiga are all down in the depths, and you can get some like cool schematics and stuff like that.
Yeah, I just haven't been able to really get into much of a groove, and maybe it's something I'll try and do now. Is just beyond just the light route stuff, just like really dig into what's there and see what the flow of that is and how that feels, because it's definitely different than the other two. I don't dislike it there. I don't want people to get the wrong idea about that, but it just doesn't compel me to do stuff the way the other two locations did.
I would say my most favorite thing that I did in the depths was something that I actually did recently, which is related to the Korok forest. So in true, Zelda fashion, if you try to go into that forest in Hyrule, you'll get the Lost Woods will you get the fog and you'll be like, pushed back to the entrance. They did a really interesting thing where they basically connected all 3 layers of that area. So there is the depth part of the Korok Forest. There is the Lost Woods part of the Korok Forest in Hyrule. And there's a sky element as well. And to complete that area, you basically have to do all 3. And it's really interesting, like, what they like integrated. I really wish that the whole world, that'd be so hard. I can see why they didn't do this for the whole world, but it would be so amazing if the whole world of Hyrule, like every area that you unlock with the towers, was connected to the depths in the same way. Like the way that the Korok Forest quests really integrated you into all 3 areas was quite amazing, and I really enjoyed it because it really like motivated you to like, oh, I really need to like help them, I need to like do this quest, versus it just being like sort of exploring for the sake of exploring and seeing what you run into in the dark and in the depths. So I think if anything, you should do that part next in your wanderings, because that was a really interesting, fun thing to do in the depths that I think you have to do it that way, or else you can't get through that Korok Forest. So
that's cool. I actually have not been to that location at all because I don't like the feeling of getting lost.
Yeah.
But that does sound cool. And a lot of the Koroks have been starting to tell me like, hey, there's something going on there. You should check it out. But I've sort of been brushing it off. But what you just said sounds really neat. So
there's a memory there too that you unlock.
Oh,
memory
really?
number 1 is the one that you unlock there.
Oh.
I was wondering why that was a question mark for me for so long. And I was like, oh, I did that one. It was the last memory I unlocked actually, because I had unlocked all the other ones. I just didn't know. So anyways, yeah, that was really fun.
Well, maybe our podcast next week will be our final Tears of the Kingdom update.
I think so. We don't review games, but we might review
But what?
But we might review this one.
You're going to review it? Okay.
I played like 180 hours. I think I can review this one. I got all the shrines. I think I can review
500 hours before you can definitively.
Oh, I need all the Koroks before I can review a game. Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's move on to our big Final Fantasy 16 discussion. As you said, the game is out. We have been playing the demo, which came out recently and has a good chunk of the game.
Yes.
Before we get into that, I thought maybe we could just start by saying, like, where were we before we played this game, just as far as what we thought of this, what we had seen so far without actually going hands-on?
Yeah, I think we were both pretty excited about going back to the fantasy part of Final Fantasy. And that was one of the main things that stuck out to us, is like, it's been many Final Fantasy games that hasn't had that like true sort of fantasy aspect. And we both liked 4 and 6 quite a bit, which had more of that fantasy storyline and characters. So I was pretty excited that we were finally going back to like medieval, like dragons and mythical creatures and, kings and queens and noble people and all that stuff. Like I was pretty excited about that.
I agree. That was something that was really exciting for me. My favorite Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy IV, which is extremely that sort of a setting.
Exactly.
So I fully agree with you there. The one thing that I was a little skeptical of was the big transition of battle systems. I'm not like a hardcore purist where I'm like, oh, it has to be turn-based or something like that. But turning it into basically a single-player action game, I was like, that doesn't feel very Final Fantasy. I like the aspect of having a party.
Yeah.
I like how all of those characters can do things in unison to make it feel like a unified group. So the idea of just having people have been making like the Devil May Cry comparison so much, and that really turned me off. Like, I don't love those types of games where it's just like rack up this crazy combo for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
So that was something that I did have some doubts about going.
Yeah. Like the beautiful combos, like the Bayonetta type, like that kind of ridiculous, like sort of dramatic action. Is not something that I usually like sort of seek out either. I'm not like super into that either.
Yeah, when it's like, oh, you did a 99 hit combo, but the thing died in the first 2 hits. It's like that never made a lot of sense to me.
Right. I kind of wanted to give, like, before I played the game, I was like, well, I'll give it benefit of the doubt, because I feel like they're really trying to like lean into this adventure RPG aspect of the game. They're really trying to develop this character, make you feel very connected to that one character, that one main character. So maybe like that's the reason why they really want you to like focus your gameplay with that character. So anyhow, I was like, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but I definitely was like a little bit skeptical as well, as to how this battle system was going to play out.
The one other thought that I had, and this, maybe I'm the only one who thought this, but in so many of the trailers and videos they were putting out, the game seemed to be perpetually happening at night. I don't know why. It's just like this game does not have a lot of color. It just seems very dark. Like I was saying, everything seems to be happening at nighttime. Like I feel like Final Fantasy is a very colorful series.
That's
really
true.
like
Yeah.
fantastical worlds. A lot of beautiful settings. So I wanted to see more of that. And again, that may have just been my own personal, like one of one hang up, but I was like, why do they keep showing these nighttime scenes? Enough
This
with
is like
the night.
Game of Thrones, where they like spent like millions and millions of dollars on a battle sequence that happened at night. No one could see
Yeah.
it.
It's like a guy in a room with one candle. Turn on the
It's
lights.
like, turn the light on. You got like a dragon. Just like breathe some fire, for goodness sakes.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing I was like a little bit just kind of on the fence about was like the characters they were featuring. I'm like, okay, they're very, and there was even like a big to do about this, where it's like all the characters are very like samey, kind of typical, fantasy type characters that you see in like medieval, Europe or whatever. And it's like, well, okay, we're like back into like the 90s here or something. And the devs had like a weird response to that, so I was a little bit put off. But I was like, some of the really wonderful and things about Final Fantasy that we love is like the characters are really like fantastical, and they're very like not rooted in reality. So I was like hopeful that maybe we'll get a bit more of a glimpse into that, and it's not just like some random like, it's just like the typical like I'm just a human knight that's doing my thing,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, but besides that, I think we were both very excited about this game. It had always been on our list since the beginning of the year that, after we wrap up Tears of the Kingdom, we're definitely going to play this game next. This is like our big summer game that we're going to play. And yeah, I think this has always been like the next thing that we were going to like really dig into after Zelda. So here we are.
Yeah, so the demo, if people haven't checked it out yet, is a pretty good chunk of the game. It starts you right from the beginning, and you do basically the first chapter. And then once you finish that, there's a whole other thing that you can do that's from later in the game, where you can try sort of a more elaborate combat setup, which is nice.
Yeah.
Your progress does carry over, which is cool. Never fun to replay stuff that you did in a demo. But yeah, I think they understood some of the skepticism that people had about this. So doing a demo like this was a really smart idea, I thought.
Yeah, I was really surprised at how in-depth and just lengthy that demo was. Like they certainly put like all of the things that they felt, I think, was very special about this game, really compelling about this game, like into this free demo that you could just try. Like this is a great way to sell a game, because yeah, I hit the buy button right after I finished the demo. And I think a lot of people probably did the same thing, because that demo was very, very well done. And it answered a lot of my questions about and sort of addressed some of the skepticism I think I had about whether it's the battle system or the characters, or like what the feeling of the game was going to be like, things that I hadn't had a full grasp on until I played the demo. Like I feel like those questions have totally been answered.
What was the last Final Fantasy that you played in terms of the chronology of release?
Oh, chronology of release.
Like, did you play 13? Obviously, we have not played 14, which is the MMO. Did you play 15? Because this made me realize, like, wow, the last...
Hold on.
Final Fantasy that I played as it was released was 12, which was on a PlayStation 2. So it has been a long time since I
think I played 13.
A new release with Lightning, the sort of pink-haired girl.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I did not play that one.
That was the last one I played, I think. And I don't even think I finished that game.
Yeah, I know people were a little bit iffy on that game.
It was a little iffy. Yeah.
So, yeah, that was another realization I had. It's like, wow, it's been a long time since I played a new Final Fantasy game. So
yeah, like as it was released. Like I go back to, older Final Fantasy games a lot. I think we both do. Because we just have very like nostalgic feelings towards the older Final Fantasy games. And of course, we both played 7 Remake. I would say that was sort of the last like modern era Final Fantasy game that I played was the Final Fantasy 7 Remake, which is quite obviously very, very different than this game.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is kind of crazy to think about that's sort of the last one, and in the chronology, the last one I played was 13. So
yeah. Okay.
Crazy.
So impressions. What did you think?
I actually loved it. Oh, that was fantastic. I was not disappointed in like the palace intrigue. A lot of people, you and I were talking about this earlier, that this is very much sort of like a Game of Thrones type of storyline. They even have like characters that are pretty much Game of Thrones characters that behave like Game of Thrones characters. And I love this. This is a part of the demo where it's like basically a small council meeting.
Yeah.
I was like, where is the small balls? Because they have this somewhere.
Where's the cupbearer?
Instead, they're bearing a crystal meth pipe or whatever it is. It was a crazy thing. I was like, what's happening right now in this game? Like, is he like smoking like a crystal?
They're like squeezing water out of this crystal. How does this work?
Yes, it's like a drug-induced like
I want to know
small
what that
council meeting or something. I don't know what it is, but
yeah, that's something a lot of people had said. Like, oh, this game seems heavily inspired by Game of Thrones. I was like, yeah, fine. Like, it's medieval. It's kind of dark fantasy.
Yeah.
Sure. But then you play it, it's like, oh my gosh. It is so Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, which I love because we're huge Game of Thrones fans. And I have always said, like, where is that like true RPG Game of Thrones game? Like they didn't make that, just like how they're never making a Mandalorian game for some reason. But yet they have this Final Fantasy game that's pretty much plays or just gives you that Game of Thrones feeling. I would say that beginning sequence in the demo was quite the surprise. And I was not expecting that at all with the crazy, like, mythical creature battle.
The sort of battlefield scene that opens with?
No, when you battle, like, the dragon and the phoenix are, like,
that one,
in.
yes.
And then later on in the demo, I'm sorry, I'm assuming that I can talk about this freely because people. Yeah, it's like the first 2 hours.
It's the first 2 hours of the game. It's a demo that's out.
No one's gonna come at me like you spoiled this demo. I'm so like scared now after the Zelda debacle. Like someone's gonna be mad. Don't be mad. I'm gonna tell you what the demo had. What we play in the demo. Yeah, later on in the demo, and you realize like what those two creatures are. You're like, oh my god, that's what's happening. It's incredible. It's really well done. I was like in on this whole storyline. It's good.
Yeah, just some other sort of Game of Thrones trappings, like you were saying, like really getting into the motivations and like the trappings of the people at the top of this kingdom and realizing they're extremely flawed.
Yeah.
Might have a lot of ulterior motives.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to know who you can trust. So that's very much in play here. The other thing is this aspect of like anybody could die at any time. Like there are a lot of
fantasy.
Probably surprising deaths even in these first couple hours of the game where you think, oh, well, surely that character will be with me for a long time. Like, no, they're dead. I'm curious how much more of that happens.
They're going to ratchet that up, I feel.
Over the course of this very long game.
Yeah.
But they're definitely
get attached, people.
Going for that.
Yeah, they always do this. It's like there's some moments of the game as I was playing, I was like, this is so Final Fantasy. This is so like them. Like that's great because they have this very special DNA in their games. And even as you look at this like super modern Final Fantasy game that, that we're playing in the year 2023, it's like, yes, this totally reminds me of like Final Fantasy 4 or 6 where they have these very like these elements that are such a signature in Final Fantasy games that we love, and they somehow was able to like bring it over into these modern games, which is quite incredible.
See, I had slightly a different feeling about that. I thought that the medieval setting of this felt really distinct and different from the setting of like Final Fantasy IV. And I was like, if they remade Final Fantasy IV in a modern style, it would feel pretty different from this, I feel. Mm-hmm. So I found that comparison was not 100% one-to-one for me. It's like, this feels different and distinct. I'm still glad that we have the fantasy setting because I've missed that.
Yeah.
But it feels very different from the other games, which is honestly probably for the best. I mean, those games are like 30 years old. It's like, we don't need to constantly redo the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the world building is like exactly the same, but there are like certain aspects.
We got chocobos.
There's chocobos. Isn't it chocobos? Anyways. Uh-oh. Is it like a bokoblin nonsense again?
We got Moogles.
There are way. Okay, so this is a scene that was so Final Fantasy IV, in my opinion. Like, so it was like the eve before Clive or whatever has to go off to, like, they have to leave for like this impending war. They have to pray to like their, the Phoenix god or whatever, which is their tradition. And he's like standing at his balcony, like looking up at the stars, and he has this moment with the girl, the girl potential love interest, and they have this like conversation and this cutscene that's like very Final Fantasy IV. I was like, this totally reminds me of like the music, it's like very like a very like kind of anime emotional scene that they build, like that kind of stuff. I'm just getting those vibes like a lot.
Yeah, that is basically the scene of Cecil. I'm not calling him Cecil, and Rosa very early on in Final Fantasy IV.
Exactly.
It is interesting to see a Japanese take on the sort of quote like Western fantasy stuff.
Yeah,
because there are certain things like early on in the scene, it's like, oh, there's the big burly guy. It's like that's very Japanese. This guy's like 8 feet tall, and he's like 900 pounds of muscle.
Especially when you see that like other woman that like is like
right,
like basically like straddling him, and you're like, oh, she's teeny tiny. Her head is like his whole like her.
Yeah, I'm curious to see more of the game in this lens. Again, this Japanese take on what I'm assuming is mostly more of a Western fantasy aesthetic.
Yeah.
If that's what it ends up being, or I don't know. I'm just curious to see more of that as it happens.
It kind of feels like, when there's like anime that's set in like a medieval, Attack on Titan, for example. I was like, what is the name of this anime that's really famous? It's like that. Like, it's like supposed to be like a German, town or whatever that this.
Okay.
All these events are happening in, but it's like a very Japanese aesthetic.
Yeah. As
to like how they look at, Western fantasy or Western mythology. Like, even the idea of like phoenixes and dragons is very Western. It's in a lot of Western, folklore and stuff like that. It's not super, it's done in a way that's like not super traditional, which I think is very interesting, so yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays out. The story is very intriguing already. Like, I can't wait to find out what is happening. There are so many characters that you love and that you already have, gotten attached to. And then there's also characters you absolutely hate already. Like Clive's mom, who is the biggest bee ever. Like, oh my gosh, she's terrible. What is wrong with her?
I want to talk about Clive now, but before we do, I want you to please rate him 1 to 10 on hotness. Oh, please do the people a favor.
He's a 10, man.
Now what you seemed a little down on Clive going in. What happened?
Well, now he's like heart of gold, so now I'm sold. I'm a personality girl.
But yeah,
man, Clive.
So they do have like a big flashback in this demo where at the very beginning it's current times, but then you go back to youngest, and he's like, what? I don't know. He's
15.
Like 15, 16?
He says he's 15, yeah.
Right. So you see what happens that got him into his current situation.
Right. Which I was like very shocked. I was very shocked by the event that led up to that.
That was a well done storytelling device.
So good. It was so well done. I was surprised. I was really like on the edge of my seat finding out, what was going to happen, who are the traitors, who are the people you can trust. Like, it definitely had that Game of Thrones intrigue part of it that just had me like right on the edge. Like, oh my gosh, I actually don't know what's going on. I can't call this. Like, who is the betrayer, who's good and who's bad. But yeah, he has a very interesting character, and obviously there's some fantastical elements as well, which comes out in the gameplay of it, which they do very well, and they explain it to you in the demo, which I thought was really good. But yeah, Clive,
this whole aspect of in the family, like, Clive is not necessarily the favorite son by any means. He has a younger brother.
Yeah,
and
he has the blessing.
So he's basically he's the heir because he has this power.
The dominant is called, I think.
Right. They call him the dominant, to transform into these things they call the Eichhorn, which are the giant like monster creatures.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it seemed to be that everybody was so disappointed that Clive, who was the firstborn, did not have this power. So he's very much like a who cares, like, he's just kind of a grunt soldier kind of guy.
Right. His only job, because he didn't get the power or the blessing, is to protect his little brother.
Right.
So like his job is just to be like a meat shield for his little brother.
But his brother also, he's very sickly. So again, It's like every character has some sort of a defining flaw.
Right.
That is so different from a lot of these games where it's just like these archetypes of like, oh, that's the hero. So even like in those first couple hours, you can see like these little things that are like eating away at either them or the people that they have relationships with.
Yeah. The parents is very interesting. Like, obviously there's their father is like the king or the nobleman of that region, and the mom, who's I very much dislike, is a terrible mother. Okay, don't give her a Mother's Day card. Don't give her breakfast in bed because she sucks.
Oh no,
a terrible mother. But yeah, there's so many like character development things that are happening already that even in those first couple of hours that you're like getting these sort of strong feelings towards each of the characters, whether you hate them or you love them or you haven't decided, like you're suspicious of them,
Yeah. So this demo was extremely story heavy.
Yes.
And that was actually something after I finished it, I came away from like, I kind of wanted a bit more combat in it so that I could get more of a feel for it. In that kind of first chunk, there is sort of one main exploration combat mission that you do from beginning to end.
You do get to fight some different kinds of enemies.
Yeah, you see sort of the more grunt enemies. There's a couple bosses that you do.
Bosses, little mini bosses.
I would have liked a little bit more because it was so early on. I was like, gosh, it's basically a tutorial. And it did feel pretty linear, that one mission that you went on. It's like, I wonder what this is like 20 hours in.
Yeah, exactly. I'm getting the sense that there's a lot of high level customization you can do to your characters. There is a level up system, obviously skill trees. You're getting bonuses when you are battling. You're getting, spoils when you're battling. You can customize all that stuff. So I can see, digging into that more as you are, deeper in the game and you have more agency and you understand your character a little bit more and how you want to play this character. So I'm assuming that is all going to be part of the evolution process for the character. But it was hard to get a sense of that since it was like a 2-hour demo that was like 80% cutscenes. So
you can choose basically, like they call it combat focused or story focused. It's basically like, easy mode. Which did you go with?
I did combat focused.
Oh.
It wasn't that hard, so.
Yeah, I actually started with the story focus for whatever reason, and I found that to be pretty easy. And it seemed like also the game was kind of like doing a lot of the combos for me, and I was just hitting like one button. I was like, that's not what that one button does. So I don't love it when games do that. So I switched over to the combat focused, and I didn't find that to be terribly hard either.
It's not, yeah.
I have heard people say that the game does get pretty challenging, people who have played more of it.
Okay.
So I'm curious to see, but I'm feeling fine staying with the combat focus.
Yeah. You get so many potions too, and like it doesn't feel like that they're like stingy with that kind of stuff. So
right. So to my earlier concern about not having a party, like they do in that mission, you did have a couple other people with you.
You did.
They were not really like story critical characters, but it was nice to have more than just you.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing stuff, and they would deal with enemies a little bit. I know later on you do get this sort of like dog creature friend, Torgal, who you see puppy Torgal in the demo, is very cute. But Torgal eventually becomes like 12 feet tall or something. So
he's a dire wolf.
That's a great companion. I do hope you continue to get more companions with you. I'm fine with it not being, the permanent party or whatever, but I do like that sense of the more the merrier on this adventure.
Really like Torgal. Torgal is so cute. And there's so many good Torgal scenes in the demo that I was just like, I just want to squeeze your face. But Torgal's basically a direwolf. And
yes.
This
but even bigger.
Kind of much bigger.
Yeah.
The main character does have a little bit of Jon Snow vibes a little bit too. Like not
I don't want it.
I don't want it. He doesn't want it. But like there's some comps there. But yes, I'm glad that you get a companion. I was wondering if there's like the two companions that you get in the demo is very like, they do kind of show up after that little like mission. And you do have like some emotional moments with some of them later on the demo as well. So I wonder if it's more like that treatment where like these characters maybe don't stay with you forever, like for the whole game, but you still have some sort of attachment to them for like that chunk of the story or that part of the sequence or something like that. So I would be fine with that too. Like honestly, really like those two. they were pretty fine companions. And later on when you play as little Joshua, you end up playing that character comes back into your party when you're Joshua. So I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting way to treat it. So
the combat uses the system, which in some games I don't love it, where there's like a health bar and then there's a stagger bar.
Yeah.
I don't love it where like you can't really do any damage until you stagger them. Fortunately, in this game, like you can still damage and then stagger. And
then you have another little meter that's like how much damage did you do during the stagger phase.
Right.
To help you like rack up those bonuses.
Right.
Yeah.
I was very much like when I would stagger something, like I didn't totally know like what is the best combo to do the most damage. Like you had a multiplier when it's staggered, but I was kind of mostly just button mashing. I'm sure later on, like you'll get more tricks or more abilities.
Yeah,
to really
I think you need to do your like special when you stagger them. Because when I did the special, it was like times like 2,000.
Yeah,
some ridiculous.
Right.
They also have like some of those trappings of like this type of combo focused battle or fighting system where it's like they have like a cinematic dodge and a cinematic attack where they have some crazy cutscene and you like quick time press a button and it does like a thing. I'm fine with those being, because they're not super frequent. I think if they did it like every 2 seconds,
a quick time event,
it would be annoying to like pause and then have like this thing like this animation happen. But it was in moments where I felt like a dramatic thing was happening, so I didn't really mind it. But they do have that in this as well.
So overall I came away pleasantly surprised by the combat. It didn't feel like overly like flashy for no reason, and it seemed to have a lot of good depth to it. And you kind of get a sense for the upgrade system, which seemed cool. So I came away from that feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, I did too. I hope that they find ways to keep it feeling fresh. I think one of the things that's really wonderful about turn-based Final Fantasy games is that the characters make your battle, those battles feel fresh. There's like dialogue, there's like different things that they're doing that makes it feel like it's very much integrated into the story. So I hope that this battle system doesn't feel like it takes you out of the story. So far so good though. I wasn't like this, I wasn't like this is terrible or something like that, even being pretty skeptical about it. So
yeah. So sadly, this is a game that I have to wait until I'm back to continue playing.
Uh-oh.
I did not.
Are you gonna have FOMO?
I think I am because I
You're
didn't
gonna
bring.
have FOMO.
I didn't bring my backbone. I didn't want to fiddle with any like remote play stuff.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough for you.
So I'm just gonna have to wait. So I guess we can expect more updates from you next week.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
Good.
excited. I'm going to finish up Tears of the Kingdom, like I said, in the next couple of days, and then I'm going to be fully devoted to Final Fantasy 16. And I'm excited about that.
Good.
Great.
Good. Two other quickies, games that I played on the plane. Both of these are games I played on the Steam Deck, which I brought with me. I had to switch over to a larger backpack to fit in all of... I had so much stuff in this backpack. I got this laptop, I got Switch, I got the Steam Deck, I got other stuff. It's ridiculous. But I'm glad I did because I had some games on that I had been wanting to play that I just didn't have the chance. One is a game called Surmount. This is just a demo, and this was in the Wholesome Direct, which happened recently. Yeah. Shout out to the Wholesome Direct. I watched that after the fact.
The best Direct.
That was maybe the best one.
Yeah.
So many good games. A lot of those games had demos, and this was one that I saw. So remember from the Xbox event, that climbing game.
Yes.
I'm blanking on it. Jusant. That was the one that stood out to me the most. And I was like, I love the idea of a climbing genre. Well, guess what? This is a climbing game as well. This is much more of a like cutesy, less rooted in reality sort of climbing game. But it's the same sort of idea. It's just super fun. I'm definitely going to be picking this up whenever it releases in full. And it's basically... you climb from, up these big mountains. As you get to the top, there's sort of like a town and you can talk to people and do stuff. But the way the climbing works is it's basically, the triggers are your hands.
Oh, that's good.
So there are places where you can just do like climb up very slowly. But the game wants you to like spin around and like slingshot yourself from thing to thing.
Oh.
So again, this is where I'm saying it's not rooted in reality.
Don't do that in real life.
Right. Do not do that.
You will fall.
As you get to certain like mile points, you can hook in with your little carabiner. So you're basically not going to fall. You're assured that you're not going to fall back all the way to the bottom at that point.
Yeah.
But even those can be challenging because it's like kind of risk reward to get to one of those points where it's like, well, I could just keep going on the easy path, or I could try and hook in to have a bit more of a safety net there. There's like consumable items that you can get. But this was just really fun. There's like multiple paths that you can take, different, like you kind of react differently based on the sort of surface that you're climbing up. So I really like this a lot. I'm super into the climbing genre now. I want more climbing games.
Yeah. More climbing games and more games where you're just unlocking a map for no reason. Right.
And this is another demo where there was a lot of content in it. I probably played it for a couple hours. So a good one to check out. I played it on Steam Deck. I imagine it's coming to other platforms as well. Another game that I played that I just been putting off is called Deliver Us the Moon. And there's actually another game in this series called Deliver Us Mars. Oh. And for some reason, these games just sort of stood out to me. I think you and I are both fans of a certain type of science fiction where it's kind of very slow, very lonely, quiet. It's just you. It's not
the emptiness of space.
Right. It's not super action packed. Like that's very much a genre of movie that I think we both really like.
Yes.
You're sort of like alone with your thoughts in space. Yeah. And this is very much mostly what this game is. Oh. So basically it's pretty story heavy game. But basically the idea is there's this like colony on the moon and something happened a few years ago. And finally you were going to go up and find out what the deal is. So there's like a kind of a long sequence at the beginning where you're like getting into your rocket. You're actually going through like the launch sequences, which is really cool.
Oh, the launch sequences! Here we go.
It's very like
exiting the atmosphere.
Yeah, because it's like the cockpit of like a 747. It's like, oh my gosh, there's like 9,000 fiddly knobs and stuff.
Oh, cool.
So you finally do that, and it's really well done. You fly there, and then you're in the station, and you're in like 0G. First of all, so you're just floating around. So the controls are very interesting to float around and get around. I do
like the floaty, that like physics thing where you kind of flow and have that gravity. It's very interesting.
Right, but it's, turning the power back on and how do I get into this area? I've been picking up some items along the way. Like I got like a little like welding thing to help me like cut through locks and stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
There is one mildly stressful thing about this game where occasionally you do need to go through an airlock to get into another place, and there's like a countdown on your oxygen, which slightly stressed me out, but I haven't found any of those to be particularly hard, and they're pretty forgiving about giving you like little oxygen packs along the way. But I like this a lot. This looks really good. I will say this thing ate through that Steam Deck battery like you would not believe it. And at one point I like set it down on my lap and it like burned my lap because it must be just a very graphically
it's like processing like crazy.
Yeah, like there's something going on in there.
Yeah.
So that was interesting, but I haven't finished it yet. I think it's only about 5 hours long, but I really like it. And I might check out the Mars one after that because
nice.
Yeah, it's up my alley.
Yeah, I haven't played one of those sort of quiet sci-fi games in a long time. So yeah, I've been missing that genre.
Yeah, so this is on, again, I played it on the Steam Deck, but these games are on PlayStation and Xbox, so they're out there. Yeah,
maybe a Game Pass.
I was waiting for a long time of like these have to be, these feel like Game Pass games, but it hasn't happened yet.
They haven't had it yet. Okay.
Yeah. I got that Steam sale though. I had that notification.
That's a good sale.
In my wish list.
There is a lot of.
That's how I got.
The summer sales are happening now, people.
I know.
There's a lot of Switch games on sale too. So
that's
get
right.
your stuff while you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of games we've been playing. Why don't we move on to the news? All right, we got a handful of news stories this week. One of them is a bit of an oddball, but let's start with some, I think, good news for everybody here. So there's a new game coming to Nintendo Switch Online June 23rd, Fire Emblem The Blazing Blade.
Yay! Wow. I have not played this Fire Emblem game before. As you all know, I am a normie since I played Fire Emblem Awakening as my first Fire Emblem game. But this game, and I only learned about this from our wonderful Discord community, our wonderful Patreon community, that Lynn, my favorite in the latest Fire Emblem game, Lynn is in Fire Emblem in this latest game, the Blazing Blade. So kind of excited about that.
Yeah, it's good news. I also didn't really do much with Fire Emblem before, its big breakout with Awakening. But I do remember seeing my exposure was like people would take the animations from battle of these games and use them in GIFs on message boards. So like when I was on, remember NeoGAF?
Yes.
When I would go on NeoGAF, people would do that. I was like, wow, that animation looks really good. Mm-hmm. So it definitely was a combination of, all the tactical stuff, but it looked great. It wasn't just like, a really bare bones kind of dry. Like, at that point, even then the series had a lot of panache. This I believe was maybe like the first one to come out, first Fire Emblem game to come out in the West, which was obviously after people had been exposed to those characters in Smash Brothers. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you're going to be checking this out at a minute.
I'm definitely going to check it out. Might as well. It's an easy, barrier to enter for me. And I think it's great that Fire Emblem has, just really grown in relevance. And I think it's actually kind of amazing that they brought back so many of the old Fire Emblem characters in the last Fire Emblem game, that it sort of piqued my interest in some of these older games that they originated from. So I'm happy to learn about Lynn's origin story.
Soon to be Whale in Fire Emblem Heroes. Is that what you're saying about yourself?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Here I come.
Drop 100 G's on
the
some gacha stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they have a good reason to release this game because they, Fire Emblem is a series that's on the rise and, even now still has a lot of potential. So it makes sense for them to put this out. I mean, it's also great for them to put out literally anything of note on NSO. Yeah. We have a question in our Q&As that kind of goes into this a little bit deeper. But yeah, the Game Boy Advance section on NSO has got some really good games, but there's just not enough on them.
That's right. Yeah, it just feels like such a light library, even though the games are pretty high quality. Like, I was so excited for this because there's notably a lot of games that I missed on the Game Boy. And so I was hopeful that there was going to be some gems in there that I finally get a chance to play on Switch, and just hasn't come. But this one is definitely one of them. So there you go. That's something.
Up next, so this is sort of a moot point now that Final Fantasy 16 is out, but kind of in the week leading up, as happens with these big games, people got their hands on physical copies and they were out there, and some people were streaming them, sharing them. It's interesting to compare and contrast Square Enix's response versus what Nintendo did with Tears of the Kingdom, which was obviously just the scorched earth approach.
Right.
In this case, they did put out a message from the team that did have a lot of threatening language in it, but at the same time was kind of done in a way where you felt a bit of sympathy for them.
Yeah.
And you felt a bit of a human touch of like, oh, these developers are impacted and they're upset and they're saddened by this.
Mm-hmm.
So again, a lot of what they were saying was just as harsh as what Nintendo did. But the way that they worded this made me feel a little bit better about it.
Yeah, it definitely brought a more human quality into it versus it being like a very like hard and fast black and white legal battle, which is what I feel with this type of happening at Nintendo, whether it's leaks or obviously mods was another big thing that we talked about recently. There seems to be just this very robotic, harsh, we're going to find you and get you and put you in jail and throw away the key kind of thing. Very legal driven and less about the people that are impacted, that I think all of us as fans of video games care about, which is the developers, right? Like this kind of stuff does impact them. It's disappointing for them when the game is experienced in a way that it's not their intention. They've spent years and years and years making an experience and wanting players to experience it in a certain way to really ensure that people get the most enjoyment out of it. So to see that aspect of it front and center in their statement, it was a little bit more, I think, palatable than sometimes when Nintendo just comes with the lawyers and the ninjas and
yeah,
like get you.
Yeah, I mean, they also have a message here of like, if you happen to get a copy early, like please don't share spoilers.
Right.
Yeah, like you whenever if Nintendo says anything about this sort of stuff, it's always in response to some media asking. They always give you just the most like bare bones PR statement. So it is nice to get something here that's a little bit more to it. I remember when we would work on big games, I think we did this for Breath of the Wild and it maybe Mario Odyssey as well. We would occasionally send to media a similar letter from the development team.
Yeah, we did.
That was talking about, just some thoughts they had on the game and the importance of surprise, which was basically a, hey, don't break the embargo.
Yeah.
Kind of thinly veiled message. But a little goes a long way with this sort of thing.
It does, because you understand if you are someone that is seeking to do something like this, or someone that is holding a copy of a game in your hands that might not have been released yet. You can see the person behind it, the human person that worked really hard on this game behind it, and maybe that will sway you to, be a little bit more careful and less cavalier with what it is that you have. So yeah, I think this is a good approach. Obviously, these leaks cannot be stopped for anything anymore. Apparently, it just is not possible in the age that we live in. I really do love this, the headline language too: illegitimate acquisitions.
Don't do it.
It's very Square Enix of them to say it like that.
When we were at Nintendo, I would sometimes take solace in the fact that, like, okay, well, yeah, Nintendo's got some stuck in their way tendencies. But who's really stuck in their ways can be Square Enix.
Yes.
So I was like, there's somebody else out there who's even more like hardcore about this stuff. And in this case, the tables have flipped.
This is like that Pokemon situation that we always joke around about, where before Pokemon was such a difficult company to work with all of their restrictions, and all of a sudden they sort of flipped, and Nintendo became the more difficult company to work with. And now it's the same thing with Square Enix. Like, we used to have lots of different marketing activities we'd plan with Square Enix, and we'd always be a little nervous because, like, oh man, they probably have a pretty tough approval process, and we need to build in some extra time working with this team at Square because they just have very particular. But yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised to see a bit of a human touch here. And they've been pretty open too recently with those little development Q&A things that they've been doing. So I don't know. Way to go, Square.
Protect Creative Business Unit 3 at all costs.
Not 2, though.
Not 2.
Or 4.
Not 2 or 4.
We don't care about them at all.
Forget those guys.
Yeah.
Our last story here, trust us, there will be a point to this. So in Los Angeles, there is a theater that is currently called the Microsoft Theater.
Yes.
This is where the Game Awards happen. This is where Nintendo used to have its
press conferences.
E3 press conferences. This is where a lot of like big concerts come through. And it's kind of part of a big plaza that they had built up that's got like restaurants and shops, and it's where it's
called LA Live.
Los Angeles Lakers play there too.
Yeah.
And so as part of that, they also had, they called the plaza Xbox Plaza. So it had very heavy Microsoft branding. And that started, I don't know, maybe like 7-8 years ago or so. So they have changed the name. I guess they had, the rights were up. It will now be called the Peacock Theater and Peacock Place.
Ew.
Somehow they found the money for that. So interesting that the naming for this is going away. This is one of those things that if you're Microsoft, it's like, yeah, I have no way of actually justifying the purpose of spending this money, or like what does this actually get you? But this stood out to me, and I wanted to include it because when this happened was the tail end of when Nintendo was still doing physical press conferences. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like a 9-alarm fire, but there was some, it was like, we're going to be doing
alarm fire.
We're going to be doing our press conference in the Microsoft Theater. Oh
yeah. No. Nintendo has a lot of these sort of things. This one was definitely the most like public of it all because it was publicly named the Microsoft Theater. And so when you put it on an invite or you tweet where your press conference is happening, you have to literally write the words Microsoft Theater into that copy, which kind of was a little bit of like salt in the wound, or like a little dagger in the heart a little bit. But it's weird, you know, when that happens and your branding is mixed with your competitor's branding, but without your control at all. Early days at Nintendo, they wouldn't even use any Microsoft Office suite products. Like we did not have Outlook at Nintendo when I started. We were using Exchange or like this other program. I can't even remember what it's called. It was terrible. And of course, if you want to be a functioning office, you maybe should get like a bigger product like Microsoft or Google Suite or something like that. But their pride would not let them. So we suffered through really subpar Office products for a long time.
So yeah, maybe this doesn't mean to a lot of other people, but as I was browsing the news, I just had to have a chuckle of like, oh, the Microsoft Theater. I remember that.
Yeah. Now it's a Peacock Theater. So, and now Disney, NBC and Nintendo, Universal and Nintendo seem to be on.
Oh, that's right. This is we are so back. Nintendo E3 press conference. Bring it back. It's time.
Bring it back. Peacock Theater.
We can finally do it. Now. We can finally
rename
do it
to
again.
The Mario Theater.
Yes.
Rename it to Nintendo Land.
Wow. I really had not realized that. Nice.
Yeah. So we're back. They're back. No,
Fully back.
We're not there anymore.
This episode is not sponsored by Microsoft Excel, but this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp.
Yes.
Let me tell you something. You spend a lot of time, you and I collectively, and all of us in the world, giving of ourselves to other people. And it can be so hard to find the time to give back to yourself, to find time for yourself, to do whatever it is that you need to unwind. This is an example of the sort of thing that a BetterHelp therapist can help you with.
Yeah, it's so easy in your day-to-day life as you go through all of the things that you have to do, all the people that you're supporting, all of your responsibilities, to just be giving away so much of your time and attention and energy and not really leaving a lot for yourself behind, which can be really tough. And as I always say, if your cup is empty, you cannot fill someone else's cup. That is what it is. So a BetterHelp therapist can really help you find some balance and give you someone to talk to about, what you can do to have more balance in your life, and give you some tools so you can fill your own cup up and not leave yourself behind.
Yeah, it's entirely online. You fill out a brief questionnaire to find out what it is that you want to focus on, and you get matched up with a therapist right away. It's also very easy to switch over to different therapists if you're looking for something else. You can do it through video, you can do it through audio only, you can even do it just through text. So it's very easy to get into therapy, which can be a bit of a scary thing for people to get into the first time, but BetterHelp makes it quite easy. Yeah. So find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/KitandKrysta today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/KitandKrysta.
All right. Shall we move on to questions from our wonderful Patreon community?
Let's do that. We get each and every question every week on this podcast from our Patreon community. We also do an exclusive bonus Q&A, which you can only find if you are a Patreon subscriber. But let's get into our first question here from Jake. I feel like it's a meme at this point, but what's the deal with the slow trickle of NSO games? Where's Mario Party 3, which was announced months ago? Virtual Console seemed to have some kind of rhyme or reason to it. So we're back to the... Boy, when you're saying that Virtual Console had a rhyme or reason and your new thing doesn't, that ain't good.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the Virtual Console, maybe we forgot about.
We didn't know what we had with Virtual Console.
I know, we were like, the grass can't be this bad. You know, it has to be greener on the other side. Yet we didn't know what the other side was going to be, which is the NSO games. So here we are.
So I was surprised when they added some of those newer platforms because, I mean, the writing was on the wall that Nintendo Switch only has so much left to it. And a lot of times when you're doing work on these games, like it's very specific to get it to run on a specific platform.
Right.
So I had always thought like, yeah, we'll get more platforms in the future when we're on the new system and they can do the work to have a full big library to support that and get a lot more games ready for that. I still think that is a factor at play here where they're like, oh, we have, X more months to go on the Switch. And we're sort of rationing out, like really severely, these handful of games that we got done. So I don't think this is going to change at all on Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
I think it's just something that is kind of a reality of where we are with this. You can hope things will be better on the next system, but the way it's been going, I don't know.
Yeah, we keep saying this, but it is really scary to think about what the next online offering will be for Nintendo. Like, let's just all of us collectively again manifest that it just all carries over very seamlessly, like everything that we've already purchased and have on Nintendo Switch, the way that the NSO works, as weird as it is, we kind of got used to it, I think, over the last, years with Nintendo Switch. Like, hopefully that just carries over. Like, we don't have to do a new thing because that would be clunky and disappointing. But in terms of, the frequency of games and how many games are still left, I think you're right that it's going to be pretty slow, and they're probably factoring this into like the what is left to launch on Switch and using this to like fill some of those probably like pretty visible holes that we're going to see later this year.
Yeah, if we get to the next system and it's this kind of drip release of the same games that we had before, I'm going to be pretty upset. I don't see the point of, even now, like if you have these games done, just put them out. Like the large library provides value for people right away. And it's not like releasing a new game where you need to, announce them kind of as you go to keep excitement high. Like this serves a different purpose for your player base. So I don't know. I don't want to spiral too deep into despair with this question, but I'm kind of down on it.
Yeah, I mean, even if you put them all out and it's just like a library of content, like what Netflix has or like what HBO has in terms of like shows that you've watched, like they have all of Friends, basically. Like, we can just have all of Mario Party.
We're not re-releasing every episode of Friends once a week.
Exactly. But what you could do is you could like market it in clever ways, like on an anniversary of a game, like shout out that game or highlight that game on like, some holiday. You could like bundle some stuff together. Like there's ways to spotlight certain things without you having to actually release the thing. Like it can just be there. You know?
Well, that would involve acknowledging an anniversary. We have to move on from this question. We're bailing out on this.
Bailing out. Okay.
Uncharted 95 is next. Hi, Kit and Krysta. I was wondering, at the time when you guys worked at Nintendo during the Wii era, were there any internal reactions or opinions on Microsoft's Kinect and Sony's PlayStation Move? When they came out, a lot of people seemed to compare them to the Wii remote and the motion gimmick behind the Wii. Considering the huge success of the Wii, I don't think there was a moment of concern, but I'm curious if you guys discussed it internally. Oh, well, if there's a moment to be concerned, Nintendo's going to go all in on that.
Yeah. They can't ever let a potential panic moment pass them by. I will say that for this particular instance, we had already been very seasoned, and we were already living in this state that was very much championed by Mr. Iwata of being sort of never like resting on your laurels and never resting on your current success. So we at the time was Game Buster popular, obviously, and all the grandmas and the senior homes. And it was certainly had broken out from just video games to like pop culture or like cultural phenomenon. And so I think it would have been very easy for all of us at the company to be like, wash our hands now. We gotta sit back and not do anything and relax and just let the success like carry us. But Mr. Iwata never let us do that. He was very much like, this is where companies fail, is when you like rest on your success. You always have to be looking over your shoulder because someone is going to copy you because of your success. And that is exactly what happened. And so when Kinect and Move came out, it was sort of like we had already been expecting it because we had been lectured about it so much that it wasn't like people in the company were like shocked, like, oh my God, I can't believe they have the audacity to copy us. But more so like that's kind of exactly what Mr. Iwata and the leadership team had told us to be cautious of and to always be moving on to the next thing. So while there was some panic, I think it was not like a surprise when this happened.
Today Kinect is a joke and that product line is gone. But when that first came out, that was a real phenomenon and a huge success. Like those first year or so sales numbers for Kinect are really impressive.
Yeah.
And that was the one that I think people were concerned about because it did feel like a very futuristic step on the technology of motion game. We're like, whoa, if this thing works, like this is like, this is the Minority Report example that everybody talks about. And you got the feeling that Microsoft was putting a lot of resources into this to make it a success. So that was the one that people were, I think, justifiably concerned about. Again, obviously, it eventually fizzled out, and I think it led to people getting burned out on motion controls in general.
Right.
But it had a good start. Move was not as much of a concern.
Right, because it was so similar to the form factor of a Wii remote.
Right, and you could tell, Sony, wants to get in this. It's kind of like what they're doing with VR, where they're it's this little thing we have on the side for people who want it. It's like they're not. They
want to be part of the conversation of that hot thing or that interesting potentially new thing, just in case that thing really takes off. They don't want to be completely without a product. I think that's usually their kind of their habit of how they approach it.
Exactly. Riven has the next question. After waiting 6 years for Tears of the Kingdom, why can Link still not pet the good puppers? I would also love to pet the goats and Don-Dons and other critters. They're all so adorable.
I would give anything to pet a Don-Don. Why won't you? I can feed it the gems. I can do all sorts of stuff, but I can't touch it. It's annoying. I want to touch it. I want to touch it.
So I can basically guarantee you, again, I don't know, but I am certain that somebody at localization has told the development teams about the existence of the "Can you pet the dog" Twitter and just said hey, this is a really easy PR hit for your game if you can just let somebody pet a dog.
Easy win.
But I think this is one of those things where, again, we talked about this earlier on in our video, where it's they just had a line in the sand of the scope where it's these are the things that we need to get right in this game. And if that results in you not being able to pet the dog, that's fine. We'll live with that.
Yeah. And they had so many, that checklist was unending.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about when they get singularly focused on one, every item on the checklist is someone's perfectionist spiral. Like someone has spiraled for like 6 years to perfect that one thing on the checklist. So if we were petting the dog, oh man, they would have tried to do too much with petting the dog. You can't give the puppy like a little food and it gets happy.
Yeah.
And it can sniff out your treasure. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, that's
one
true.
day. Zelda picks the dog up.
On the flip side, you can hunt down wolves. So there's a bit of a duality there.
I don't hunt the wolves. I only hunt the ugly
Maybe
ones.
they can do away with those enemies in the next game.
The wolves?
We don't need evil dogs for you to take out in video games.
No, wolves. Like we can just give us like really ugly things to hunt. Like I don't know.
More
like,
warthogs?
I'm fine with like hunting the bird, like duck hunting, like like taking down like a bird, or like even like a I don't know, like a
bird
deer
lovers of the
terrible.
world are not happy with you right now.
The Audubon Society is coming after me immediately after
I'm
this.
gonna go eat a
recording.
giant roast duck after this.
I do love roast duck.
Switching it up underscore has the next question. I have finished my playthrough of Tears of the Kingdom. Leading up to this, I tried to delay finishing the game as I was scared of not having to play it anymore. I've slowly weaned myself off the game over the last week and decided to play some indie games as a palate cleanser. You spoke in the recent podcast about how big and long AAA games can be these days. I know sometimes I just want to play a short, fun experience. Recently, I've played Planet of Lana, Hello Good Boy, and Dordan. All gorgeous, short indies. I feel like these games are important as they give me a moment in time and pull on my heartstrings, even though they may only be 4 to 6 hours worth of game. Why do you think length of games is always a selling point for AAA games? I know I did not have 100 plus hours to play all these games, and at times it turns me off to buying them. Have you guys ever not played a game because of its length? Also, can you think of a time an indie game had an emotional effect on you and created a great moment? Please recommend.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with switching it up underscore on all of his points here. Because we were debating this a bit in the last podcast, and I do the same thing as he does, where I will play like a super long, big open world game, and then if there's time in between, that's my indie game dabble time. And usually I try to like squeeze in, a few indie games between big AAA titles. I will say that I think there is this correlation, and this is probably a very real correlation, that the amount of money it takes to develop a AAA big open world game is proportional to how much money you can sell it for, plus like people's perceived value of that game, which I feel like may not necessarily always be like 1-to-1, but that is how like the business model of it works. So I do think that has something to do with why these games are huge in scope.
Yeah, there must be something about the way like the startup costs for these games of like, oh, we got the engine or we got the tools, we got all this stuff, where it's like we're spending so much on this already, we might as well make it really big in scope. Mm-hmm. Like you were said, so we can maximize our opportunity with it. There are still, though, a lot of people out there who really do look at the length and like the staying power to make a buying decision. So I imagine that is backed up by some of the research that these companies are doing as well, where it's like if you're doing a certain type of game, like they want X amount of content or now, post-release content to feel justified in doing it. I do think it's gotten overboard, though, like where in one of these upcoming episodes, we're making a list of all the games that are coming out this year.
Stop saying that.
We're going to do it.
You're making me nervous.
There are some that we just can't get to because these games now are so big and so long and everything is 100 hours. So like Persona 5, yeah, it sounds like an amazing game. I don't know if I'll ever play that now.
Triangle Strategy is my white whale.
I don't know, like I'm staring down the barrel of like 5 other 100-hour games, and I can't go back to this. Like, what am I? You tried. You couldn't even put a dent in that game. So what am I gonna do?
I'm 4 dungeons in now, you guys, and it's been it's been like at least 20 hours.
4 of like a billion.
That's what I'm saying.
I keep banging this drum. Like indie games are truly the glue that is holding this industry together at this point.
Yeah,
like
truly,
the quality of those games is so high now.
The variety. That's my main thing. Variety.
Like everything like that AAA games really like are not always, obviously not the quality part, but a lot of those games can feel a little bit samey.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that to your earlier point, the reason why they feel samey is because a lot of them are built on the same engine. Like, but you're gonna build the Breath of the Wild engine. You're gonna want to squeeze as much out of it as you can because you spent a million years doing it. So that all makes sense from a business perspective. You have to understand that. I think the business of video games plays a huge factor into all of this stuff because people still have to sell the games. But yes, I agree that indie games is holding us all together, is giving us a chance to cleanse our palates between these big games that almost feel like at times like we have to play them because if you don't, you feel left out. Totally. And maybe that's something of our own making. That's you certainly don't have to, but I think the internet makes it so hard not to. But yeah, I have been very interested in the Dawn game. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. That's the watercolory looking, like French game that looks so good. I actually downloaded it for Switch, so I'm going to play that for a little bit as well. If I have time before Final Fantasy 16.
Before your next 100-hour game,
I'll dabble, yeah. But there's been tons of games that are like very much pulled on the heartstrings. Like that game Little Gator that we both
love Little Gator game. I know Switching It Up _ has played that game, but I would strongly recommend that. I think Night in the Woods is another one that like gives you the emotional moments that that, he's looking for. There's so many.
This is not really an indie game, but like the Life is Strange games. Is very good, short, and has like a huge emotional story payoff. So
yeah. All right, VGM Life has the next question. Hi, Kit and Krysta. From a marketing standpoint, what do you think the optimal duration is between releases in a series? Even assuming that there are no QA issues, the answer seems to be longer than 1 year. But is there a sweet spot that maximizes both pre-release hype and long-term series sustainability? Thanks.
Yeah, nowadays it seems like the cadence is release the main game, release 1 to 3 DLC.
Some DLC.
Packs, and then you wait, sometimes for a very long time if there's a pandemic, for the sequel. Or there might be like a spin-off game too, like in that time that you're waiting for the main game. From my perspective, I think I like that there is some DLC for the like let's just use Zelda as an example because that's what we're all thinking about still. So Breath of the Wild, then we have 2 DLC packs, then we had Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, and then we waited for like a million years because this game got delayed.
But 7 years is not the answer to this question.
That was my point, is that is not the answer. But I did like that there was the DLC after Breath of the Wild main game, and there was that Age of Calamity that kind of like kept you in the universe and gave you some new story things to tide you over. So there's things that I think companies can do in between releases to like keep the interest in that franchise and keep you like engaged in that world. I would say like no more than 2 years though that's hard.
The guy from Xbox just said it takes 10 years to make these games.
Well, sorry, I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, the 7 years is not the answer. The annualized is obviously not the answer either. No. Like every year they keep putting out these Call of Duties, and it feels like the wheels are about to come off. But somehow they're able to do it. But that's too much. There are some games that are so all-consuming that I need time to like Monster Hunter is a game.
Well, because you were
Animal Crossing is another game where it's like I put so much into this. Like if you put out another Animal Crossing game like a year later, I would not play it because it's just. I invested so much into that. Like I need to take a little break. It's nice to not always be playing the exact same thing. I'm going to say,
sorry, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second.
Please.
Or is the answer, now this might not be a good solution, but is the answer like the Mario Kart DLC pack answer? Where you just never like...
There's no new game.
There's no new game. I think it could work really well for a game like Mario Kart or Mario Party or something like that. Where it's like, you don't need to like reinvent the wheel every time. It's just a racing game.
I think we're going to be seeing Nintendo doing more of that in the future, honestly. I don't know how much other companies will, but I think that's a thing. I feel like, I'm going to say like 3 to 4 years, I think is a good... depends on what the game is, but I feel like that's good. Where, again, you can fit in the game and any DLC. give people a bit of a break so that the interest can build up again. It doesn't feel like, oh, I'm still playing this game, or I just finished playing this game. Clearly, this is a question where you can have multiple opinions, though, based on the way you're looking at me right now.
I don't really like the 4-year mark. It seems a long time. 4 years, it's like a huge part. Your life is different in 4 years. So I feel like we should get a sequel before your life completely changes.
You're on the edge this week. So we are once again moving on. Think of how many Nintendo Directs happened in 4 years. Wow. Especially if I never come back from this vacation.
Okay.
Our final question is from Zroid. Hey, you two. Your video about the horse game and how the Switch is clearly winding down got me feeling a bit reflective. With the understanding that there's still some time for certain things to be announced, what would you say is your biggest Switch regret? In other words, what is the thing you were most hoped would come to Switch but has not done so yet? This could be a game, a hardware revision, an OS function, or anything along those lines. Mine would have to be the absence of a new Rhythm Heaven game.
Oh,
it's a good question.
I wish we had a Rhythm Heaven game. That would have been so perfect on Switch. This is a great question. I'm still holding out hope for some of this stuff, but I really wanted this Wind Waker HD to come. But it may happen.
It's too early to say, though, that it won't.
It's too early that it won't. Yeah, that it might. It might still happen. So let's just keep our fingers and toes crossed for that one. The other Switch regret. I was kind of bummed that we never saw like a true. Oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking. You go. Let me think. All right. About this a little bit more.
I have two. The first is like how inconsistent online play is in different games. So, for example, Mario Kart 8 and ARMS were two games that were like surprisingly really competent online. Like they worked. Like you didn't run into lag depending on like who you were playing with. Like really, really worked well in my experience. Yet, Smash Brothers and other games like are a complete slideshow if you're playing with the wrong people.
Right.
I have yet, like, we've had a lot of Smash Brothers games that have online play. I have yet to play one that actually works well at this point, which is really frustrating given how much I would actually like to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
So one would hope for the next system, things would progress more and we could get more games online that actually work because people like to do that. The other thing just goes back to, the classic games and the handling of those continues to be such a big missed opportunity. Nintendo could put out more of its first party games and that could be a big selling point. Nintendo could be much more aggressive with third parties to get them to put out their games on whatever the NSO equivalent is in the future. Just doesn't seem like a priority, though. It's a bummer.
I remember what I was going to say now. Tamagotchi Life.
Oh, yeah.
I miss some of those and games in that genre. I miss some of those 3DS gems that we got, Fantasy Life, Tamagotchi Life, all games that end with life. Yes,
there is a new Fantasy Life coming.
I know, but it's not here yet.
Wow.
When is it coming?
Again, how many 100-hour games do you have to finish before you can play Fantasy Life? That's another 100-hour game.
I was going to say Style Savvy, but that new fashion game is
that is basically Style Savvy.
It's in Sophia, so we're okay.
Yeah.
But there's like some of those little 3DS gems that I did sink so many hours into those games that we haven't gotten on Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's like a bygone era. I don't know. Hopefully not.
Well, that's all of our questions for the week. Thanks to everybody who sent one in. Again, you can sign up for our Patreon and send us a question at any tier.
Yeah. All right. Shall we shout out some of our beautiful, wonderful superstars?
Let's do it.
Here we go. Aaron Hash.
Ben Eichhorn.
MaruMayhem.
Eigenverse.
KissMyFlapjack.
Mike Chin.
Mr. Rogers.
Roy Eschke.
Switching it up _
Sephazon.
TheSharkAmongMen.
vgmlife.
Link, the hero of wins.
Angela Bycroft and her pig Molly.
TurboChargeNerd.
Thomas O'Rourke.
Kyle LeBoeuf.
Kristopher Lara.
Simon.
Fredrik Ulf Konradsson.
And Andrew Youhas.
Hooray!
Hooray! Angela Bycroft is the winner of our One Up Club meetup.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
Sweepstakes. recently, so I have
Got the Street Fighter 6.
I gotta
Mega
send
prize.
a Street Fighter 6 to New Zealand, which is gonna
Down
be
under.
fun. Which is gonna be fun. Yeah. It's gonna be fun for me.
Do people from New Zealand take offense if you call that down under? Is that like an Australia trademark thing?
You might have just offended
I may have indirectly
Angela.
offended millions of people. Oh well.
You might have indirectly offended Molly, but whatever. All right then, One Up Club graduation ceremony. Here we go. Aaron Burgundy,
Adam and Ansley,
Jean Malari,
Ale Alejandro,
Alexandra Pratt,
Astro Dev,
Bad Moon Horizon,
Ben GB,
Bookham Dano,
Brad SF56,
Brook Obscura,
Brookie Kazooie,
Bruce Dash,
Chelly Squirrel,
Kristopher Lay,
Cozy Tar,
Captain Alex,
C Roper 17,
Daniel Cold,
Daniel Phillips,
Dachshund,
Dash,
Dolce,
Dino Punch,
Elite Peach,
Elix 780,
Esparts 50,
Fart Priest 69,
Furbound,
Fernie and Jess Forever,
Fox Deploy,
Fred Rossi,
Garrett Holfish,
Garth the Wolf,
Gartooth,
G Sun 101,
Ian Shea,
Iris Marin,
Israel Izzy,
Jay Rando,
Jabroni Jones,
JBJ,
Jeffrey Hernandez,
Jerry 92602,
Jesse Hernandez,
John Responte,
Jonathan Rowe,
Jordan Collette,
Jordan Hemmerly,
Joseph DeHaze,
Joshua Clements,
Juji Fruit,
Just Camtro,
Justin Lemminger,
Cairo Trigger,
Kawa 2796,
Keith Kwan,
Kelp Shake,
Kevin Delane,
Kilo Kibo,
Chris Yu,
Christopia Party With Me,
Kyle Gamer Berry Rookie,
Kyle Kretzer,
Kyler Nelson,
Linnell Stickman,
Lennis Sullivan,
Lit,
Mad Dog 5981,
Marky Man 64,
Mecha Dragon 101,
Megan,
Michael Cravens,
Mikey,
Motomania,
Mr. Andy Pong.
Mr. Beans and Dip,
Oh my gosh, I lost my place.
MSN.
MSN Poke Gamer,
My Tran,
Nasir,
Nathan Burkhart,
Nick E,
Ninja 11,
Panda Buns,
Paul C. Pace,
Paul Gale Network,
Prime Factor,
Prince Charmless,
Raver,
Rain Tech,
Renee Rivers,
Rick Alvarado,
Ryath 1,
RJ Kern,
Rob Osborne,
Rocks,
Ryanetta,
Sam Nealand,
Sharif Jackson,
Slowbro,
Shrews,
Silly Ferret,
SJ Sharky 777,
Spicy Munchkin,
Steel Citrone,
Tales of Link,
Tefew,
Terrastorm,
Thomas Alvarez,
Topher Schmofer,
Travis Torline,
Troopage,
Tugs Puppy Bear,
Tuskoob,
Tyler Geis,
Vesves,
Video Game Stupid,
Virtual Bot,
Weeb Kingdom,
Wicked Davy,
Will Ernst,
Will Johnson,
Zudaverf,
Zelgaroth,
Zapati,
and Zroid.
Zeroid. What happened? You cleared your throat and lost.
I saw something out of the corner of my eye and I got distracted. It's like a bird or
What was
something.
it? Was
A
it a
UFO?
bowl of,
I don't know.
Was it a bowl of beef noodle soup
a bowl of
flying
soup,
through your
yeah.
window?
It's my next meal.
All right. Well, don't forget to subscribe to us on patreon.com/Kit and Krysta to support this and everything else you see on our channel. Thank you very much.
If you are watching this on video, you can go ahead and subscribe to the Kit and Krysta YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up and also leave us a comment. If you happen to be listening on audio, you can also subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and also a written review.
Yeah. And don't forget to follow us on the socials. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook.
That's right.
All right. You need to get on with your day and continue exploring beautiful Taiwan.
Off I go.
And I need to go to bed. So
Time zones.
Okay. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.